So, this happened to me a few years ago, when I was still living with my parents. I was babysitting a neighbor's kid at the kid's house. They weren't actually neighbors, they just lived in my neighborhood. They saw my babysitting flyer all over the town, so they decided to give me a call. My parents went out for dinner, and I was left with this sweet 6-year-old girl. We ate dinner early and decided to go to the playground nearby. When we got there, we were alone, or so I thought. The sky slowly got darker very early, as it was winter, and as it got darker, they shut on the streetlights in the playground, and that was when we saw this late 30s to early 40s male with black, curly, long hair sitting on the park bench, just staring at us. He was rubbing himself down there as he just gawked at us. My heart slowly dropped as I saw him, and I grabbed the little girl by the hand and got her off the jungle gym. I pulled her close to me, as she didn't know what was going on. She kept asking why we were leaving, and I kept shushing her. As we reached the sidewalk, I glanced back, and the guy was gone. I felt calm, but a little worried at the same time. As we reached the next block, I heard someone step on leaves. I looked back, and it was the guy. He was speed walking towards us. I started to pick up the pace and picked up the girl. I got the phone out, and just my luck, it was dead. I started jogging a little bit, still carrying the girl, and dropped her right when we got close to the house, and I told her to run. We ran to the house, and so did the guy. He was at least 5 meters from us. When we got in, I locked all the doors and slowly caught my breath. The girl still didn't understand. Then I heard it. I heard loud knocking. "Let me in," the man said repeatedly as he kept banging on the door. I looked through the peephole, and he was fumbling with a switchblade. He was trying to get it into the keyhole and get into my house. I froze. I told the girl to hide, and she ran. The guy saw her through the window that was right next to the door. "I see you, pretty little girl. I'll find you," he said to the little girl. I yelled out in my most manly voice, which was hard being a 5-inch petite girl, "Get the fuck out or I'll call the police!" And after 5 more knockings, he left. I slowly started to sob as I went to get the girl and cried with her. So to the guy who tried to do who knows what to me and that little girl, let's never meet again. To start off, this happened when I was around 9 or 10. I lived in the Northern Territory of Australia, and me and my family would often camp out in cabins right in the outback near the wetlands with a group of family and work friends. I'm talking way in the country, easily an hour drive before the closest gas station kind of thing. It wasn't uncommon for there to be 15 kids at these gatherings, so I always looked forward to these trips to play with all of the other kids. The most common game we played at night was a game called Spotlight. It was kind of like a hide-and-seek tag game, where you would hide in spots and sneak around trying not to get tagged by someone else's flashlight. Well, I always got super into these games, ducking and hiding, determined to be the last one to be caught. I decided to hide a little further past the boundaries the parents had set for us, just to make sure that nobody would tag me. I hid right in front of the mangrove swamps, where the mangrove trees blocked most of the moonlight. I ducked behind a concrete roadblocker. I was so sure that I wouldn't get caught. Suddenly, I felt this heavy presence next to me, and I assumed it was someone from the group sneaking up to tag me with their flashlights, but to my surprise and horror, it wasn't a playful kid. It was an adult. My initial thoughts were that this was one of the parents coming to scold me for hiding too far, but as he snuck towards me and crouched down, I realized he wasn't anybody from our group. To be clear, where the cabins were located, we were way out of somebody's way. It was secluded wetlands, and there was no reason for any other person to be nearby. This man was white, and in his mid to late 30s. He was large and crouched next to me, inching closer. The moonlight illuminated his crazy eyes. They were open wide, like he was ecstatic. I could faintly see a huge grin on his face, and he wouldn't take his gaze off of me. It was a terrifying, menacing stare. He crouched next to me, inching closer. I didn't move a muscle, and just kept staring. Not even more than 30 centimeters away from me. I was frozen in fear, and considered running, but I was worried he would grab me. I know, it was just stupid kid logic. I just stared back with shock, hoping he would sneak back into the mangrove trees. He inched closer again, mouth wide in a huge grin and manic eyes. He stank up the swamp mud, and I could hear his heavy breathing. As I considered making a break for it, I heard people calling my name. Parents, the adults of the group. I realized I wasn't nearby and was still hiding, and the horde of people from my group were running around trying to find me, flashing their lights around frantically. The man realized this and jolted up and sprinted away, and I did the same in the opposite direction. I never told anyone about this until recently, and when I asked my mom about it, she looked worried and asked if I remembered. From her recollection, she told me I was panicking and wouldn't talk about what had happened. Some of the men in the group ventured around to see if there was a lurker nearby. What my mom said next makes me shiver thinking about it. One of the dads found a pair of latex gloves in a pillowcase floating in between the mangrove trees. Whatever he planned on doing, I'm thankful people got to me in time. This all started around late July 2015. To provide some background, my name is Ethan. I'm 15 years old, and over the summer, I had moved from the urban area that I grew up in onto 11 acres of land. By our property, there was access to a well-known bass lake, and being a huge fisherman, I knew I had to check it out. The only time I could fish was in the dark of night, and my parents obviously worried about me. My dad purchased me a raft so I wouldn't be on the shore in the dark, and an air gun with roughly the firepower of an actual .22 rifle, just in case I encountered coyotes or mountain lions. For weeks, I fished in that lake almost every night. After about 3 weeks, I headed out to a secret spot I had found the previous night. It was far out, but had good cover for fish. After fishing at this bank by lamplight for about half an hour, I saw something move. This didn't seem weird in the slightest. Small animals like rabbits lived all over the place, and were fairly active at night. About 5 minutes later, I looked up and, in the tree line, saw a man in a dark jacket. He looked to be around 6 feet tall, and fairly built. I'm not a heavy gun guy, but I wasn't weak either. Plus, I had my rifle. He didn't say anything, he just stared. After about 5 more minutes, he spoke. "You like fishing, son?" he asked in a deep, croaking voice. Now, I'd listen and continue to listen to spooky YouTube stories, and knew that most things happen when the victim engages the offending person in conversation. Even when just trying to be polite, that's when things usually happen. Red lights immediately went off, so without a word, I reeled in my lure and rowed back to where I launched my raft. After I started back with my rifle and the lantern, I felt like I was being stalked. I quickly did a 180, rifle drawn to see where it was, and there was nothing. I thought of my encounter with the man, and then started having a gut instinct saying, "You're being stalked. Get the hell out of here." I'm usually not the kind of person that listens to his gut, but that night, I felt a weird sense of urgency. Out of the corner of my eye, I detected movement. At this point, I was both scared and mad as hell, and I wanted to beat the crap out of that guy. From the direction I had seen movement, the man walked out between me and my now barely visible house. What do you want?" I remember stuttering, the urge to fight this man leaving my body almost instantly. "I just want to fish with you, Ethan." When he said my name, I knew it was time to act. "I can't. I gotta go back home. My parents will worry," I responded. His friendly smile suddenly became creepy and twisted. He slowly moved his jacket to reveal a Glock that was concealed before. "I can't let you go home." As soon as he said that, my fight-or-flight instinct kicked in, and I bolted for the house, kicking him on the shin as I passed. I heard him yelling in agony, but he recovered quickly, and as soon as I ducked behind a large boulder, I could hear gunfire. Being a stupid male teen, I pulled out my rifle and returned a couple of rounds. I think I hit him in the leg several times with my rifle, and as soon as I saw him go down, I ran for the house. When I came into the house, my dad was heading out with his 12 gauge. After briefly telling him what the situation was, he went out, and I could hear police sirens approaching. 15 minutes later, I could see the police leading the man away. The next week, I was called by the police. Apparently, the man had multiple cases of rape brought against him in the past, breaking and entering, and as well as several attempted murder and murder charges. But that's not the end of it. He was also already set up for life, but escaped prison several months ago. I still fish the lake at night regularly, now equipped with some fresh wisdom and a new 8-inch Bowie knife on my belt. Looking back on this, it sends chills down my spine now almost 5 months later, and I often think about how much bad stuff could have gone down. I'm a 19-year-old girl living in Australia. I was looking to make some extra money and decided to put some items up for sale on Gumtree. For those who don't know what Gumtree is, it's similar to Craigslist. I had some novels which I no longer wanted and decided to post them with a simple message that said, "Looking to sell some well-loved books. They're in good condition. If interested, text me your offer." About half an hour ago, I got a text message from someone who said he was a 20-year-old college student named Michael who was looking for books he could read in his spare time. He offered me a really good price, and we decided to meet up, although he said he could only meet up at 9:30 p.m., as that was the time he had finished work. That didn't bother me, as I was always out at night, and we agreed to meet in the parking lot of the local supermarket called Kohl's. As 9:30 hit, I was sitting on the trunk of my car, waiting for him to text me. I waited about 20 minutes, and then got a message saying, "Hey, I just arrived. I'm in a black van." Although it was very dark, I was able to spot the van in the line of parked cars directly across from me. I picked up my backpack, which had the books inside, took a few steps towards his van, and then froze. A few things were making me feel very uncomfortable. Firstly, he didn't get out of his van. He just sat there with this weird grin glued to his face, staring straight at me. Secondly, his van looked like it was going to break down any second and was covered in mud. But the third and last thing was the one thing that freaked me out the most. He wasn't alone. He was sitting in the driver's seat with another man in the passenger seat and 2 men in the back of the van. I knew this was because I could see their heads leaning over the 2 seats, and they were all just sitting there smirking at me. He also didn't look like a 20-year-old college student. In fact, they all looked to be in their late 30s to early 40s. I looked around to see the car park was empty except for our 2 cars, and the lights in the supermarket were the only ones lighting up the area. I realized this wasn't safe and turned around to head back to my car. However, the second my back was to the van, I heard the engine turn off and the 4 doors open and close. I could feel them eyeing me, and I sped up to get to my door and fumbled for the keys, cursing to myself for locking the door. "Hey there, hot stuff. Why are you in such a rush?" said one of the men. "Yeah, you're so pretty," said the other. I finally got my car unlocked, threw my backpack into the back seat, and hurried into the car. But right before I had a chance to close it, one of the men climbed into the car and got on top of me, pressing his hands hard into my mouth as I attempted to scream. I was kicking and trying to push him off me, but he was just so much bigger than I was, so my attempts failed. I must have been distracted by the man on top of me, however, because I didn't realize one of the other men had opened the passenger door, climbed in, and then grabbed my head, keeping me still. The two back doors to my car opened, and in crawled the two men that must have been sitting in the back of the van. One tore off my shirt, and the other fumbled to take off my skirt. I was screaming as loud as I could, but my screams were being muffled by the pressure of the man's hands. I was now lying in the car with nothing on besides my underwear. I was a virgin, and I didn't want to lose it to just anyone, so knowing I could be losing it right now really upset me, and before I could help myself, tears started pouring down my face. "Please, just let me go, I won't tell anyone," I cried, but they all just laughed and started touching me everywhere. I felt so violated. I thought I was gonna be raped, and then God knows what else, when I suddenly heard, "Hey, what the fucking hell are you doing?" The four men quickly scrambled out of my car and ran to their own van and drove off, even before the doors were closed. I sat up with my hands covering my breast and saw two young men standing outside my car. "Are you okay? We'll call the police and let you put your clothes back on." I quickly dressed myself and got out of the car to thank these two young men. According to these boys, they were skateboarding past and saw something going on in the car, and when they saw my feet kicking, they knew something was wrong and rushed over. The police arrived, and I gave my statement, and the license plate number of the black van, and a week later, I got a call saying that they had arrested 4 young men. They were all brothers and lived in a small house not too far from the supermarket. I am just glad that they were locked up, and nobody else can be a victim of their attacks. I'm also glad I kept my virginity through the experience, and I'm now working towards rebuilding my self-esteem and confidence, as I'm now totally broken and destroyed right now. I hope I never meet those men again. Ever since I was little, I was fascinated by ghosts and the stories about them. Growing up, I watched shows like Ghost Adventures and A Haunting. I always wanted to have an encounter with a ghost, but when I did, I got more than I bargained for. A couple of years ago, I was living in student housing. It wasn't a college dorm, but an apartment. My roommates were all girls. Their names were Lexi, who had become roommates with for the longest of the group, Sharon, who was Wicca, and Lily, who had schizophrenia, but was a very nice person, though odd at times. We had moved to a new apartment because, at the old apartment, the complex had too many burglaries, including one in broad daylight. The college I went to decided it wasn't safe anymore, so we went and moved into a new apartment. We were excited because it had been refurbished and much nicer than the previous one we had stayed in. It was shortly after when the strange things began to happen. Sharon claimed on the first night she was there, she was the only one in the apartment, so she felt lonely and cried. She claims when she did, she felt a cold hand on her back, rubbing it as if to comfort her. Then Lily said one day, while playing on her keyboard with her headphones on, she felt like she was being watched. When she looked over, she said she saw a small, shadow person about the size of a child sitting on the ground, watching her. One time, a guy I liked named Robin, who is now my boyfriend, came over to hang out, and as soon as I was coming out of the bathroom, I saw he was looking curiously, taking a few steps towards one of the bedrooms in the apartment. I asked him why, and he said he saw what looked like a shadow figure dash across the doorway, and he said he thinks it was a little girl because around where the head was, it looked like something the shape of a ponytail waving behind it. I had my own experience as well. Sharon and I shared the same room, and one day while chatting, we felt a cold spot suddenly appear. Jokingly, we asked, "Hey, can you move? It's kinda cold where you're standing." And amazingly, the cold spot moved away from us. As creepy as it was, I had another experience that I will never forget. I was lying on the couch on my side while talking to Lily, who was sitting on the couch opposite of me, which was several feet away. I was gushing about Robin, who I was crushing on at the time, and as I paused to take a breath, above my head, inches away from my ear, I heard a girl's voice whisper, "Kaylee, Kaylee." I froze. I darted my eyes over to Lily, who was wide awake. I asked, "Did you hear that?" And she said, "Yeah, I did." I didn't want to believe it was this ghost talking to me, so I wanted to disprove it. I asked my roommate Lexi if she was playing a prank on me because she was studying in her bedroom, which is just right behind the couch. I thought she could have darted in the doorway, said my nickname, and darted back into the room. Lexi said she hadn't, and I tested it to see if she was telling the truth. Lily said how I said the name didn't sound the same as the whisper. I even asked Lily to say the name from where she was to see if she was playing a prank, and her voice just bounced off the walls. However, nothing I did could disprove the voice I heard was from the ghost. I was still freaking out because Kaylee is my nickname and one only my family uses. Hearing this ghost say my name scared me because it made me wonder what else did it know about me and how often was it watching, something I couldn't see. Shortly after, Sharon got some crystals and put them in our room. After that, everyone ceased to have any more experiences with the ghost. When I told Sharon about it, she said, "Oh, I guess the ghost got too close to the crystals and got sucked in." Needless to say, the experience left an impression on me. I never again want to deal with any other ghost. I've had my fill of them.